Welcome to La Vida Rosa. I'm your host Pinky, and today we're going to be talking about the Nene Leakes interview. But before we get into that, make sure you check out my website, lavidarosastyle.com, where you can find cute accessories like the ones I'm wearing right now. And also these handmade wire rings will be on the website as well. The link is down below. Like, comment, and subscribe. Without further ado, let's get into this video. Okay, you guys, so I just got done watching the Nene Leakes interview with Carlos King. There was 2 parts, and I watched both parts. And I'm not going to discuss every part of the interview. I'm going to mostly discuss Nene in association with Housewives of Atlanta, because I feel like that was the meat and potatoes of the interview anyway. But I can't lie, the whole time with me sitting there watching the interview with Carlos, I was really wondering, why don't Nene and Carlos work together and have a show? And I know at some point he was like, well, what if I do a, Love and Marriage Atlanta? And even if it's not like a Love and Marriage spinoff, like, I feel like give Nene a show. I feel like because y'all are good friends, you know that she can bring the views. What are we doing? Let's be real, Nene is the queen of reality TV, and she's just entertaining all by herself. We can see that through the countless memes, the countless sayings that Nene has said over the years that we still say to this day. I really feel like Nene could have a show like what New York used to do back in the day. It was a show called New York Goes to Work, and they had her try like different jobs. Like one time she was auditioning to be an actress, one time she was, a dog catcher, a chef. I would love to see Nene do a show like that. I feel like that would be funny. I don't know how much she wants people to get into her life these days. So even a show like that, or if they did For the Love of Nene, something in that area, I feel like that would be really good. Yeah, why don't Nene and Carlos work together? Like for real, not just say it. I don't know if he could afford her. Maybe that's a part of the problem. Let's just get into the interview. I didn't really want to get too much into her personal life, but she did bring up Greg, and Greg was a huge part of her story and storyline. And that was her husband for years and years and years. And yes, they did have a moment where they got a divorce and they broke up, but they got back together. And Nene was just talking about how that was the love of her life, and she'll never find another love like Greg. For those who don't know, her husband unfortunately did pass away from cancer a couple of years ago, and it was just devastating, obviously for Nene and her family, but for the viewers as well, because we got to know Greg and we love Greg. He was he was one of the nicest, sweetest, most beloved husbands of the Housewives series. So it was so upsetting to see that he passed, but there was a little controversy around that, because very soon after he passed, Nene began dating her new boyfriend, and it was controversial because the man was married, and Nene has that famous line, close your legs to married men. And even Carlos asked her, what makes what Kim was doing different than what you're doing? And she said basically the man was separated, he's divorced today, and Big Papa is still married to his wife, whose name happens to be Kimberly. During the time of this interview, she wasn't still in a relationship with him, but I'm guessing she's back with him, because I just recently saw a video where she said, I'm with my man, and then Peter was there, and she called him boyfriend number 2. And I thought that was funny, because Carlos also asked her, have you ever been attracted to Peter? Because that was a huge thing. People really thought that Nene and Peter were flirting, and that it was a whole thing. And she's always vehemently denied that. And it's like, but you do flirt with him. You do. And don't, you're gaslighting. Don't be willfully obtuse. You clearly flirt with him, whether you're attracted to the man or not. You do flirt with him. And I just feel like it's a little disrespectful to Cynthia, because what if she would have went out to eat with Greg while they were divorced and said boyfriend number 2? Nene would have shot through the roof. So since we're talking about her relationship with Cynthia, she still is on this rant about Cynthia has this different side to her. And she's like, I don't know if she's trying to say she's a hood, but she's basically saying she's way more vocal than she presents herself to be on camera. And that's a side that she never showed. Even Carlos confirmed that Cynthia used to cuss Peter out, but Peter used to spend the money, and so I could totally see her doing that. Go back and watch the old seasons and how Peter used to act with Cynthia. I totally understand why she used to cuss him out. I feel like Cynthia doesn't pop off for no reason. Nene makes it seem like Cynthia is this gutter snipe behind the scenes, and I just don't believe that. I just think when Cynthia's buttons get pushed far enough, she gonna stand up for herself and she gonna go off, and we've seen that on the show. But yeah, this whole picture she tries to paint of Cynthia, I'm not buying it. She also said she would never be friends with Cynthia because Cynthia was involved with trying to get her fired. You can't tell me Cynthia held enough weight to get Nene, of all people, fired. I just don't believe that. But Nene, you did publicly advocate for her to get fired on Watch What Happens Live. So even if she did behind the scenes do that, I'm not even mad, because you definitely tried to get her fired once or twice. I personally think that Nene just wanted Cynthia to continue to be a lapdog, and as soon as she got a backbone and stood up to her, it was a problem. And I don't know that she ever genuinely loved Cynthia as a friend. I feel like Cynthia definitely felt that way for her. And honestly, it's really crazy because I feel like her and Kim have gotten into it much worse. But she's so willing to forgive Kim, even after some of the heinous things that Kim has said and done. We're going to get to that. But you're willing to forgive her, even though y'all fall out every 2 seconds, but you won't forgive Cynthia? Then we get into her discussing the ladies on the show. She never thought that Kenya was the star of the show. She was basically saying she was never threatened by Kenya coming on the show, but she does think that Kenya was a great addition. She also alluded to the fact that when Kenya came on the show, that's when all the orchestrated storylines popped off. She said when the show first started, they were really married to their husbands. They were really housewives that stayed home and went shopping while their husband brought home the bacon. And so when Kenya came along, there's been a lot of speculation that Kenya has had fake relationships on this show. It's no secret. Even to the point where a lot of people thought her relationship was even fake with Mark, which I don't think so at all. I think she was completely 100% invested, and it just did not end up working. And still to this day, this girl cannot get away from Mark. He was stretching this divorce out. I ain't gonna lie, I agree with Nene when she said that happened, because when I was rewatching the show, it did feel a bit more orchestrated. People were looking for a moment. It just didn't feel as authentic. And she also says that Kenya is not showing up for work these days. She's bored with the cast of women on the show. She said her and Candy. And she doesn't have anybody to verbally spar with. She can't have go back and forth with reads with anyone on the show, because think about it. Who is she going to go back and forth with that is actually going to be a contender? Then he brought up Phaedra. She did not want Phaedra to join the show, meaning you did know who Phaedra was. And that was a big controversy at one of the reunions, that Nene did not know Phaedra. And Phaedra was like, yes, you did. And your brother and my brother went to high school together. We from the same place. You knew who I was. And Nene was just straight up lying, saying she didn't know her, because she admitted in this interview that she did. I don't know, was she threatened by Phaedra coming on the show? That's what it sounds like. Also, when the question came up, is Phaedra a star? She said she's not a star, but she is an entrepreneurial star. And I could totally see that, because say what you want about Phaedra, but she's good with starting businesses. She was a lawyer. Was she a funeral director? Something like that. Then they brought up Sheree, and how in the first season Sheree left her off the list to the party, and that's what kind of popped off the whole season, was Sheree leaving her off this list and Nene feeling some type of way, like, I know I'm on the list. And Sheree ended up admitting years later that she purposely did it, and Nene was like, how you gonna leave me off the list and I'm the show? Like, you canceling me is like canceling yourself. So I thought that was funny. Then they brought up Portia. She brought up how she and Candy went to bat for Portia. After her first season, they were debating on whether or not they were going to bring Portia back. She was on the chopping block, and Candy and Nene went to bat for her and said that she should remain. And that makes it even more disgusting of how she treated Candy later on down the line, and spreading that nasty rumor about Candy. And you probably wouldn't even be here had she not stepped in to advocate for you being on the show. Talk about a backstabber. Nene was like, she doesn't understand how Candy and Portia are cool to this day, and neither do I. Because some things, it's like, I could never trust you again. I could never, even if I forgive you, I could never trust you. And you make up something like that about me that really could have ruined her career. You know what I'm saying? It could have got her canceled and everything. Speaking of Candy, she said that Candy is not a star, more so of a supporting star. She's overrated, overpaid. The camera doesn't love her. Maybe the camera likes her family, but it doesn't like her. And I just thought all of that was so nasty and so rude. Mind you, I do think Kandi has shared everything she can on this show, but you can't say that she didn't contribute all these years. Like, Kandi has been interesting to watch. Yeah, you kind of have to push her buttons first, but once again, she also brought her life into it. She didn't have to bring her family on TV to embarrass her time and time again, but she did. So and then also, let's not forget, Kandi is literally a star. She was a star before coming on this show. She legitimized this show in many ways, because we knew of Kandi before this. She was in a very popular girl group, and she's a very successful writer with connections to many different celebrities. She's been a star ever since she was a teenager. I just don't understand her beef with Kandi. She's had a beef with her since day one and just never made sense to me, and it just comes off as jealousy. And then Carlos brought up Giselle and Robin from Real Housewives of Potomac, and she basically said that they're starless, they're not stars. And Robin actually responded on her story saying, like, I'm not a star, I'm actually a regular person that just so happens to be on a reality show. And you know, it was surprisingly refreshing, because I have not been feeling Robin on that show for a while, but I liked her response. And then I also like how she ended by saying, not quite sure why I keep on being brought up as whether I'm a star or not. And I would wonder the same thing. Like, if I'm a star, why am I constantly in your mouth? Then Carlos brought up Claudia and their infamous back and forth where she read Nene down, and Nene even had to admit Claudia was her best opponent, if you will, when it comes to reads, and she was finding it hard to keep up at some point. And I ain't gonna lie, I can't remember what all Claudia said. I do remember her saying something about her hair looking like ramen noodles and being ate up in the back, but the part I really remember is Nene saying that her bob was tight. It was tight. And then also when she said, let's go to the studio and make some beats. Classic. And she also said that she did go to the producers and told them that Claudia was the one that deserved a peach over Demetria. And but she still said that Claudia was starless. I don't like, Nene can't give a compliment without giving a diss. Like, she's so good for giving backhanded compliments. I don't know whether someone is a star or not. I feel like can be very subjective, but Claudia still to this day is successful. She has a show on TGIF. I see her on TV all the time. Maybe she's not a star in the realm of reality TV. She definitely keeps a job. And then they talk about Marlo. At first, Nene was saying that Marlo didn't deserve a peach, because I guess maybe she wasn't willing to share enough of her life, and she kind of pigeonholed herself into the friend of position on the cast. Why buy the cow when you're getting the milk for free? I feel like Nene kind of walked it back. So maybe if she's cool with Marlo, maybe that could be a stepping stone back. I don't know. That's what it felt like, because I just don't understand why you're feeling so drastically changed about Marlo being on the show, especially since a lot of people don't feel like Marlo should be on the show. It definitely thirsty for going after Kandi and Kenya so that she can keep her peach. Like, a lot of people feel like Marlo should have never got a peach and definitely should be off the show, because she goes way too far. I for one agree, because especially this season when she was banging on Kenya's door with her daughter in there, like, y'all, my stomach turned. I could not take that. If Kenya came outside and had a full-on brawl with Marlo, she deserved it. For Nene to be saying that now when no one agrees with that is kind of like, are you trying to be a part of the alliance? She said that she looks at Real Housewives of Atlanta as her baby, and you know, she was there from day one. She filmed the pilot, the one that they shopped around to the network to try to get picked up. She also said she only made $10,000 her first season, and an extra $5,000 for the reunion. And she said at some point her, Sheree, and Kim band together so that they could get $100,000 for their third season. And I thought that was interesting, because I think at some point Nene was making $1 million from the show, But I also understand, you know, when you have a brand new show, it's kind of like you got to pay your dues because they don't know whether the show is going to do well or not. So the salary, I guess, for the time made sense, especially for a new show. But I know Nene was swimming in money at some point, so it was worth it. Why did she sue the network? According to People, Nene Leakes filed a lawsuit against several entities and executives involved with the show's production, alleging racial discrimination, and the lawsuit was dismissed in April 2022. Now, in this interview, Nene said that the lawsuit was ongoing, so she could only say too much. So I don't know, did they settle, but then she decided to pick it back up and sue him again? I don't know. She told Carlos that she felt she was treated different than a lot of the other OG housewives and that she wanted the network to explain why they were only offering her 6 episodes. So I think by the last season that she was on, the way she's saying that Kenya is not showing up, Nene was not showing up in her last couple of seasons. And to be fair, she was going through a lot. Greg was sick. Now we know that she was having issues with her son behind the scenes. He was dealing with a drug issue. Nene was going through it. And so I can kind of understand why she was so standoffish in certain instances and why she didn't want to give too much of her life because of what she was going through. But that's going to come at a price. They're not going to continue to pay you Nene's season 3, season 4, season 5 prices if you're not giving. You're not really invested in this job. So they cut down her episodes and she was feeling pushed out. And when she asked them why they were doing that, they said it's because you're unhappy. I know that sounds jacked up, but when Kenya left the show because she got married to Mark and she didn't want to show her life on the show, when she did decide to come back, allegedly Kenya didn't get the salary she was making before. She had to take a pay cut in order to get back to where she was. Also, another example, when Portia, either she got demoted after she beat up Kenya or she got demoted after that whole scandal with the lie she was spreading about Candy. Either way, she definitely got reprimanded. And so for Nene to not be giving her all, I feel like those 6 episodes, that was a reprimanding. Like, you bring it those 6 episodes, next season you'll get more. You know what I'm saying? Let's not forget that last season Nene did rough up one of the cameramen. When it comes to her not being treated fairly, she said that Kim was not required to attend all the cast trips, but she still got to be a part of the show, basically getting special treatment, and also alluded to Kim being the R word. I'll put it up on the screen. I'll never forget on that last reunion that Kim was on, and she was talking about she's the only dumb white woman that would want to sit on a stage full of black women. Apparently the network did nothing about it, right? Kim continued to have her own show on the network for a few more seasons. So I do agree with her on that. I do think Kim got special treatment. Also, Nene tweeted some very suggestive things alluding to Andy being the R word. And the reason why I'm not saying the word, y'all, is because I don't want to get demonetized. It's crazy that she thinks that they should still be cool after that. Like, literally, you sued the network that he's on. You call him these names. You know, Andy is the face of that network. So basically, you burnt those bridges to the ground. She was trying to say that they should be able to come back together and be cool again. And it's like, some things you can't come back from. And why would you want to? If the things that you were alleging are true about him, about the network, why would you want to come back? That's the problem I have with what Nene is doing. Like, your stance is flip-flopping too much. You keep throwing out hints that you would come back and that you would like to come back. Even though you put it on the fans and said you will only do it because of the fans, clearly you would like to be back on the show. Why are we having a full 2-hour interview talking about it? I just wish she would stand solid in her stance of being against that network instead of playing hopscotch and flip-flopping when she talks about it. Like, every time we hear you talk about Real Housewives of Atlanta, there's no way you should want to go back. You should be constantly drilling in people's heads what they did to you. You know what I'm saying? But saying you will go back makes it seem like what you're saying wasn't true or wasn't that deep. She claims that the Real Housewives of Atlanta cast of women have not supported her. She claims that there were group messages that prove that other housewives basically felt the same way that she did about not being treated fairly. You were condescending to a lot of people on the cast. Even in this interview, you said you were the Beyonce of the show, which you're not lying, but I still would feel a way if I was one of the cast members and I would hear that. You know what I'm saying? You'll do and say certain things. You'll constantly give these backhanded compliments, like what you said about Candy, like you calling people starless. Like, why would they have your back and you're constantly talking crap in the media about them? You know what I'm saying? You've had run-ins with almost every single person that you've been in community with on that show, and at the end of the day, I could see them not putting their neck on the line for you, because if you were happy with the network, would you be putting your neck on the line for them? Because we already see how you do when you're asked whether somebody should be on the show. You're quick to say no. She did say at one point she was blackballed and she had a lot of deals in the woodwork, and all of her deals ended up falling through. Carlos ended up asking her if she was up for a talk show, and it never came into fruition. I think it was something in association with Wendy Williams, and it was the same company that produced the Wendy Williams show. I think she was alluding to the fact that Wendy Williams had something to do with the show not happening. She also talked about how her and Wendy had a tumultuous relationship, like they would be really cool and hang out and have fun together, and that same day Wendy would go on her show and talk crap behind Nene's back. I could see that being the case. I could totally see Wendy doing that, because Wendy always said that she was loyal to her audience before any of these celebrities. So I could totally understand that. It was a little two-faced though. I seriously hope that Wendy Williams is doing well, because things haven't been looking good for her over the past couple of years. She also shades the current season and basically said they're in the house that she built and it's tumbling. She says that the current cast should be scrapped and the show needs a star. When Carlos asked who her dream cast was, she said not including myself. She said Portia, Kenya, Drew, Marlo, Candy, and Kim if she's willing to come to work. And it's like, okay, you just said that Candy was boring, and you also have claimed that Kim was in the past. So which one is it? I cannot with the back and forth. Nene feels like she should be as big or bigger than Kim Kardashian. They had shows that were under the same parent network, and she feels like they pushed Kim harder, even though Nene came out first, when in actuality the Kardashian show came out first. And also, let's just be honest, those are two totally different demographics. We have to take into account that tape that Kim made, okay? And that kind of is what really put her name out there. She was hanging out with Paris Hilton long before she did a reality show. So Kim already has some clout. She just wasn't as big as she became. Kim has just a different type of appeal. The men lust after her. Some women really want to be her, even black ones, child. I don't know why, when she modeled herself after us. And also, Kim Kardashian married Kanye West. That took her name out of the stratosphere. I feel like she just has a wider reach. Now, should Nene be on the same level? I think she definitely has the personality for it, the entertainment value for it. She's one of the queens of reality TV. Her and Tiffany Pollard, that's who it is to me. You're on an ensemble cast, whereas Kim's show really was based around her. Yeah, it was based around her and her family, but that was her show. She was the star of that show. Now, do I think they promoted Kim more than Nene? Yes. Race had anything to do with it? I could see that. Totally see it. I also think Nene's attitude had something to do with it. Like, we have to be honest. Nene doesn't have the best reputation for having the best attitude. But I do think Nene deserves her flowers for entertaining us for all of these years. I would love to see her on TV again. And, I would love to see her on Real Housewives of Atlanta. But like I said, that bridge is burnt down to the ground. That's not happening. We might as well let that dream go. Y'all let me know what y'all think about the interview down below. Do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? I'd love to hear your opinion. And I hope you enjoyed this video. And I'll see you in my next one. Peace.